Oh, I looked at everything and drove out. I took a look at the properties
Okay, you want
and
us to
stuff.
sit over here? Where do you want us to sit?
She can sit by you, I'll take my camera out of the way.
What was your name?
Mark Usage. It's been a while since we've been in here.
Yeah,
I got a lot older all of a sudden.
you and me.
I had both my hips replaced since March. Been a little experience. Now
I
my
heard
left
that
knee-
that's a good operation.
Yeah, they did the anterior approach. They didn't take it from the front. Sorry about that one. Get up and walk and see, come out of it.
It's when they mess with your back that you gotta watch out.
I know. I came close to that because I've got a couple of, I've got spinal stenosis and arthritis, you know, it's a gift that keeps on giving, but,
Yeah.
yeah, they were gonna operate on my back. Wait. My grandpa was 95. He did fine, but.
Yeah, you either do or you don't.
Yeah, it's not a real, I don't like the odds on that. But, now my left knee needs replaced and I've got that arthritis in my feet. I'm playing darn up, you know. But yeah, Dr. Firestone got a doctor. He did a D trick for surgery.
What an age we live in.
Huh?
What an age we live in. I had my eye lenses replaced. I mean, you know, it's like you go down and
Oh my God, I know, it's a golden.
body
years,
and fender shop.
The golden years, they call it. I don't know if too golden
Well,
about
the
it.
thing about it is, you know, if you lived just 80 years ago, you could have died of the flu.
Oh, yeah.
You know, influenza was the #2 killer after heart attacks.
Oh, I know. Now I've run into a couple guys younger than me. They ordered it first. That seems to be the thing now.
Wow.
And you don't have the survival rate. You lose so much blood before they can do
I
it.
can imagine. What would cause that?
Just the muscle gets weak. The way it goes, and you just bleed out internally. I was talking to a lady today, it's a nurse at the hospital, and she said that guy was in for another procedure, and that happened. He was in the hospital, and they saved him, but he lost a ton of blood.
Oh, yeah.
Do you prefer to be addressed as Jeffrey?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, just to be, because
Okay.
call you what you want.
Just call me Jeff.
Just don't call him late for dinner.
And I'm gonna ask.
Mark.
I know, Mark, how was I gonna remember your name?
Vusich.
Usage?
Vusich. V. Usage.
That's how I'm gonna remember.
I thought I just turned it off too. It's a text. I didn't know it made noises while it was off.
gonna be interrupting CNN news for this, or?
Yeah, we upstage them completely.
This is breaking.
It's not gonna be televised then, huh? It is?
No, I don't think it is.
We're just recording.
Yeah,
We're recording it, but I put it on.
just a minute, see, well, I don't even know what to say.
No, they're actually gonna record the so.
Well, yeah,
Make sure we don't say something live. Marty's gone, so. Marty and Jim Klein, I sold their house and they went to Oregon.
well, we were supposed to, open it up and run past the last minutes and accept them and then choose a head, a leader and then all that stuff, but, there was a glitch in the, software, and they didn't get the notice in the paper in time, so all we're gonna do tonight is just the hearing on the marijuana issue.
Okay.
So it'll be simple, hopefully.
Oh, that's right. It's Tuesday.
Yeah,
Just a Monday.
yeah, yeah.
What size batteries might have some?
They're triple A. Need two triple A's. And Jan's got it. So we're
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, on both of them?
Thank you.
So you're gonna read just VAR 1400 Brisbane. This request is only just the stuff. Oh. This here. Okay. Let's get down here. 500 feet
So
separation.
we're not gonna read this part.
That box and this box.
Okay.
From 500 to 100 feet. And that's it. All you gotta do, okay?
Okay.
And the same thing.
And the other one?
This one.
All right.
This and that. Basically the same thing.
Okay.
I already have one of those. From last time? Was this one changed? Oh, you got even better? Yeah, I got a little better. Oh, she's got, I remember the lab there used to run soup kitchen, bring the, impression. They're very, sort of close.
Thank you.
You don't use them, the more you run,
Thank you.
Left hand, or the first one on the right, on the other. All right, ready?
Okay. All right, we're going to convene the Chino Valley Board of Adjustments. And tonight we're going to hear a couple of requests. The first one is going to be item VAR 14 4.3-001, Brisbane Levine, request,
Jeff, we actually need to do roll call first.
Oh,
So I
okay.
apologize.
Here's the agenda.
We're going to do our roll call first.
All
Gary,
right.
or Jeffrey Brown.
all right, then let's do a roll call.
Okay. Jeff Brown.
Jeff Brown, here.
Mark Busage.
Here.
Gary Warren.
Here.
And Beverly Duffy. Here. Lillian Morales. And then do the pledge.
Yeah.
Okay, if we could all rise, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because of the error on the agenda, we will be moving directly to public hearing.
All right, so the first one we're going to review is item VAR 14-001, Brisbane Levine. This is a request for a variance. Relief from the setback requirements in Chapter 4.31, medical marijuana dispensaries, off-site cultivation sites, and infusion facilities. And what they want is, they want relief from the 500-foot separation requirement to 100 feet to accommodate a medical marijuana cultivation facility.
Thank you. If you can direct your attention to the screen behind me, before we get too far into this, I did want to run real quickly through the changes that were made to the ordinances regarding medical marijuana in December of 2013. Before that time, there were almost no restrictions on cultivation or dispensaries for medical marijuana purposes. We now have them as conditional, especially the cultivation facilities as conditional uses in the agricultural 4-acre, residential 4-acre, and the ag residential 5-acre minimum lot sizes. Despite those zoning districts, you must have a minimum of 10 acres to have one of medical marijuana cultivation facility. Or a dispensary or an infusion facility, and they must comply with Section 4.31, which are the new regulations for dispensaries, cultivation sites, and infusion facilities, and no dispensaries are allowed in the residential zoning districts. They are permitted uses in AR 36, which is agricultural residential 36-acre minimum, commercial light, commercial heavy, and industrial districts. Regardless, they are still required to comply with the 4.31 medical marijuana dispensaries, off-site cultivation sites, and infusion facility requirements. The previous standard was solely for greenhouses, and that was a 300-foot minimum frontage on any road, 50% maximum lot coverage, 50-foot setback from property lines, and 20-foot separation between structures. This is for commercial greenhouses. They had to be 500 feet back from State Route 89. There's a maximum 35-foot building height. Again, all were required, regardless of zoning district, to have a minimum of 10 acres. And it must have been located on an arterial street or road, 89, 2, 3, 4, 5 north, south, or a collector street, 4.5 north, 3.5 north, 1, 2, or 3 south. The changes to the commercial greenhouse regulations shrunk that size down so that because there are commercial buildings and commercial locations that are far more conducive to this use than agricultural and residential settings. There is a 50-foot minimum lot size in commercial zoning districts, and again a 50-foot setback. The other standards in the medical marijuana 4.31 greenhouses must still be met. The current regulations for the agriculture and residential is a 200-foot minimum lot size or frontage, 50-foot setback from streets, 20 feet from the side and the rear of the parcel, and it must not exceed 50% lot coverage, and again, a 35-foot maximum building height. We talked a bit about water and the difference between exempt and general service. These, depending upon how they're grown, whether it's roots in a container or roots in a ground, they can use an exempt well, and then they may also use general service water. Okay, so now in terms of these ordinances, those are the changes that we made, and those are the changes that have precipitated these two cases to come before you, because the property owners had purchased these properties before these ordinances went into effect. Now, having that being said, there's a doctrine called vested rights. And the doctrine of vested rights says that if you have an investment in a property, if you have had some sort of approval, if you have spent money, if you've been issued a building permit, then you have a right to build and develop according to the rules when that permit or permission was issued. In this case, and in the following case, there were no permits issued prior to the change of these rules. So I'll talk later about vested rights in the staff brief, but I just want to make sure that you're clear that that's what vested rights means. It means that you've spent money, you have, other than purchasing the property, you have an investment and a right to develop at it because you were issued a permit at a date certain. Whoops. Okay, in terms of the Brisbane Levine property, this is the site map for where this property is located. It's at the end of Center Street. You can see here is the end of Center Street, so this is some distance, 600 feet from the end of Center Street. Applicant Brisbane acquired the subject property in August of 2013 with the intent of operating a medical marijuana cultivation facility. At that time, there were no specific restrictions on medical marijuana cultivation facilities. They simply had to meet the standards set forth in the UDO Chapter 4.30 Commercial Greenhouse Standards. The Chino Valley Town Council held a work study session on October 2nd, 2014 to discuss additional regulations for medical marijuana dispensaries, cultivation, and infusion sites. As a standalone, either one of each or in combined uses. After considerable discussion, staff was directed to begin to compose a ordinance regulating the manner and placement of activities related to medical marijuana uses. On October 30th, Agent Ken Moan submitted a request for a technical review meeting for the purpose of reviewing site plans and requirements prior to submittal of the required building and engineering permits. This meeting was held on November 13th, and a summary letter was mailed to Mr. Moan on November 19th, 2013, containing comments that would need to be addressed prior to submittal of building and engineering plans. A draft ordinance was provided to Town Council in advance of the November 12th, 2013 meeting for discussion. During that meeting, Council and staff reviewed the draft ordinance, and Council suggested a number of changes. The item was then forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission on November 19th, 2013, when a public hearing was held to take comment from the public on the proposed ordinance after proper notice as required by ARS 9-46204. After discussion by members of the public and commissioners, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to forward the proposed ordinance to the Town Council with recommendation for approval. Ordinance number 13779, which was the medical marijuana regulations, was heard by Town Council during the regular December 10th, 2014 meeting. After again taking comment from the public and considerable discussion among the council members, the council voted unanimously to approve the ordinance with an amendment which increased the separation between cultivation facilities in AR zoning districts from 200 feet to 500 feet. In February of 2014, Planner Mayday met with applicant Moan to discuss the requirements for submittal of building permit application. At that time, Mr. Moan was advised that the town had adopted additional regulations governing the manner and placement of medical marijuana-related uses, and the previous site plan would not meet the standard now in place. The applicant was advised he had the option of reconfiguring the plan or requesting a variance. On February 10th, 2014, Agent Moan submitted an application on behalf of Brisbane Levine requesting relief from the 500-foot separation requirement. As you can see, the subject parcel is located about 600 feet past the terminus of East Center Street, east of it in the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Township 23, Section 16 North, Range 2 West. It's approximately 23.5 acres and well exceeds the 10-acre minimum for medical marijuana cultivation facilities in the subject zoning district. At its widest point, the parcel is 964 feet wide, rendering it unbuildable for the owner's intended purpose under the current regulations governing manner and placement of medical marijuana facilities. Furthermore, the easternmost boundary lies in the floodplain and floodway at widths varying from 500 to 250 feet, rendering approximately 6 3/4 acres unusable and unbuildable, reducing the area available for development. Finally, the site is challenged by its topography. The highest point in the southwest corner of the subject parcel is 4,720 feet, which slopes downward northeast to 4,680 feet in elevation. This site is in a remote location. The applicant would be required to dedicate right-of-way for the extension of East Center Street to the access point to this property prior to issuance of a building permit. Its lack of frontage on a major arterial or collector street enhances its anonymity. 2 public hearings were held. An error in language on the poster necessitated a second meeting. At both meetings, Agent Moan provided site plans, landscaping plans, and building elevations for review by neighbors in attendance. He then described the project and the basis for the request for relief from strict application of zoning requirements. Questions from the neighbors involved mitigation of impacts on surrounding homes, including smells and odors from plants during harvesting, generation of traffic, hours of operation, lighting, and security, among others. A notice of public hearing before the Board of Adjustments was published in a paper of general circulation on August 10th. In addition, letters were mailed to all property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and the property was posted in full compliance with ARS 946204. Laws regulating the issuance of variances from zoning standards and requirement are set forth in the Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 9462.06 G2 and H2. These standards are as follows: that the Board of Adjustment shall hear and decide appeals for variances from the terms of zoning ordinance only if, because of special circumstances applicable to the property, including its size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, the strict application of the zoning ordinance will deprive such property of privileges enjoyed by other property of the same classification in the same zoning district. Any variance granted is subject to such conditions as will assure that the adjustment authorized shall not constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with the limitations placed on other properties similarly situated in the same zoning district. 946206H goes on to say that a Board of Adjustment may not grant a variance if the special circumstances applicable to the property are self-imposed by the owner. While the subject parcel is challenged by its topography, shape, and flood status, those factors do not render it unusable for any other purpose. The parcel may have been wide enough to accommodate the greenhouse cultivation of medical marijuana when the applicant purchased the property. However, upon the adoption of 13-779 on December 13, 2013, the increased separation rendered the parcel unusable for that purpose, but not for other greenhouse cultivation activities. The applicant is still entitled to use the subject property for greenhouse cultivation of anything but medical marijuana. The value of the property has not been diminished by excluding the cultivation of one product when numerous other plants can be cultivated on a commercial scale on this property. In addition, the applicant can still use the property for all 9 permitted uses enumerated in the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 3.6, Agricultural Residential 5-acre minimum, and Section 3.6.2, permitted uses, and 14 conditional uses similarly set forth in Section 3.6.3, conditional use permit required. Therefore, staff finds that the applicant has not met the special circumstances threshold as required by law, as the strict application of the zoning has not deprived the owner of privileges enjoyed by other property owners in the same classification or zoning district. The applicant's desire to grow medical marijuana, which constitutes the basis for the variance request for relief of the separation requirements from the UDO, constitutes a self-imposed harm. By calling out this circumstance separately, the legislature has underscored the importance of not issuing variances when the harm is caused by an action of the property owner. First, the applicant could have formally submitted a site plan for review and approval prior to the change in the ordinance, which would have vested his rights to the previous separation requirements. Secondly, there are numerous permitted uses and conditional uses to which the owner is entitled. Insistence on this specific use imposes the harm. It is not related to a condition of the land. Therefore, staff finds that the owner of the subject property has in fact inflicted a self-imposed harm that has caused the need for the variance from the separation requirements for the proposed use. Finally, any variance granted in this case would constitute a grant of special privileges not available to other properties in the similar zoning districts. Many other applicants for greenhouse uses in the AR5 zoning districts have been denied on their face because they cannot meet the minimum acreage requirement, setbacks, greenhouse area, or the property owner wants to do something that is currently not allowed in code. Therefore, granting this variance would constitute a special privilege not extended to other property owners similarly situated. Staff offers the following findings of fact. Number one, that the applicant does not have vested rights to the previous 50-foot setback. Number two, the applicant has not demonstrated that the property is unusable due to its size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings. In fact, numerous other permitted uses and conditional uses are still available to the property owner, including commercial scale cultivation in greenhouses. Number three, because the property owner wants one singular use that requires additional separation from adjacent residential properties, the need for the variance is imposed by the applicant rather than the site itself, and therefore constitutes a self-imposed harm. And number four, issuance of the variance from the separation requirements would constitute a grant of special privileges, as other applicants similarly situated in the same zoning district have been denied, as they cannot meet the same standard from which the applicant is requesting relief. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the application. I'd be happy to take any questions that anybody has. The applicant, I believe, is here and would like a chance to address the board and the public.
Why don't we go ahead and hear from the applicant? Yes, go on up there, state your name. Mm-hmm.
My name's Ken Moan, architect. I live in Chino Valley, 3915 West Roadrunner Drive. What happens, we did start this process in October, and we were in the process of trying to move this forward. And then the rules were changed. Obviously, what we just heard was we could have done it faster. What we are looking for is that we did want to put the medical marijuana on the property. We did have the smaller setbacks. Once the 500-foot setbacks were put onto the property, those 500-foot setbacks crossed each other. So we need almost 1,000 feet of setback, and the property is only 900 feet. So it did stop the whole process. We bought the property, the owner bought the property with the intent of building medical marijuana, or growing medical marijuana. So all the other uses were not an issue. That's not what they're in business for. It is medical marijuana. So what our intent was is to try to put the building, on the buildable part of the property and landscape as much as we could, which I have, like photographs of what the property would look like with the landscaping on it. The intent was to make it a very quiet business in there, bring business into the community, They do want it quiet. The security of these places, I've worked on a couple others, are stunning. There's one place I just did down in Mesa. They had 64 cameras on it. And those were all lined up and connected with the police departments and security. They're quiet. They're quiet businesses. They have screenings on it that do not allow any light out in the evenings. They depend on sunlight to grow these plants. As for odors, there's a greenhouse that's on Road 1 East, just north of Road 3 North, and there are no smells emanating from that property. That's about it.
Is there going to be 24-hour security on this property, or does it rely on the Chino police to police it?
No, it's got the security cameras, which have direct connection to security companies, which then connect to the Chino Valley Police.
But it will not be manned.
It'll be manned during the day. At night, it will be the cameras are all monitored by somebody off-site.
Will you have security fencing around the property?
The security fencing is as high as we can make it, probably 8 feet. It goes right around the building as close as we can. It'll be chain link with what we've got is the buildings, we're going to have a security fence probably 20 feet away from the building. The ground slopes off here, the buildings are recessed, and we're going to have as much landscaping as we possibly can around there. We want to go way over any requirement, and the reason we want to do that is we do want it to be secluded. We do want it to be secluded and quiet. Really, the profits on this thing are fairly high. They have a lot of controls. There's cameras inside. There's security locks. People are monitored at all times for the staff inside, because really they cannot allow anything to mess up this business. So security is stunning in these buildings, the ones I've seen.
So you're using a metal type building rather than an opaque type greenhouse?
There's two types. There is the metal, which uses the grow lights, but the weather up here is great for using greenhouses. It just depends on the grower. And these growers coming down from Colorado use these greenhouses.
Because the picture appears pretty, in here, a very dark, big piece of color right there. And I was just wondering if you're using something that's going to fit in a little bit better with the landscaping, or if it's going to be very obvious.
It's going to be white.
Okay.
If you go Road 1 East, 3 North, that's what the building will look like. These will be lower than that one. They're not as high. But yes, it is, because they have to let in the light. During the daytime, that's not an issue. At night, they've got these blackout screens that totally make these things dark, so no light is coming out of the buildings at night.
How concerned are you about the location with the, we never get floods here in Chino Valley, so it's very close to that basin, ravine and wash, the Santa Cruz wash. Are you concerned with the possibility of losing your buildings?
Theoretically, this is the floodplain. That's the floodplain, and it's just been laid out. So we're off the floodplain area. And if there is floods, well, they're going to hurt.
Is that the 100-year floodplain? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
So hopefully they won't. But they took that all into account when they purchased the property.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any input from any of the neighbors, or?
Just chill.
Can you please, you need to come to the microphone, state your name and no problem, address for the.
My name is Barbara Kasserman. I live at 1405 Salida del Sol, Chino Valley. What else do you need?
That's it.
I'm a little confused. Where is this particular parcel located?
You go right past the high school, about another block, and it's right at the end of the street there.
Right past the high school. That's not the end of Center Street. Yeah, I thought she said the end of Center Street.
Center Street ends, and then you go a few, like 100 feet further,
kinda
and then
close
this
to the high
property's
school?
over on the right.
Okay. Okay, that was just my question, because it doesn't have, my question, though, is, well, I'll wait and listen to some more stuff. Do I have to come back up and say my name again if I want to talk again? Yes. Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you.
It's really not that hard to do, so. Gentleman right here.
Good evening. My name is Dave Lacy. I live at 3115 West Brenda Trail. My neighbors own two properties adjacent to this property that you're talking about tonight. They have to be in Europe right now in business, so they asked me to deliver this letter to you folks. If I'd like to read it to you if you like.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is from the Briotes, Pat and Jim. They say, to whom it may concern regarding variance to the 500-foot setback for proposed pot farm on parcel 306-18013 Charlie. And excuse, they're talking,
Different parts, that's a different parcel, so that's the next case.
oh, I'm early? Can I come back?
That's, yeah, you
Okay.
could do that later.
Thank you.
All right, is there any more discussion on this piece of property, which is at the end of Center Street past the high school? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Andrew Myers. I live at 1050 North Sailors Way in Gilbert, Arizona, 85234. I'm actually here in connection with the second case, but what I have to say actually bears on both of them. I was the campaign manager, Proposition 203, that legalized medical marijuana in the state, and I'm now the executive director of the Arizona Dispensaries Association that represents the state licensed dispensaries and cultivation facilities in the state. So I handle kind of the public policy side of this, and I'm our lobbyist at the legislature. The main thing that I want to get across tonight is that these facilities offer a massive amount of potential economic impact to towns such as Chino Valley with an absolute minimum of potential drawback. And we know this from the fairly long experience that we've had with tightly regulated medical cannabis. And we've seen this industry evolve over the years since 1996 when the first medical marijuana law was passed in California, and it was the Wild West. It was a completely uncontrolled nightmare moving into in 2010 when we passed our law in Arizona, and we have a very tightly controlled system here. And the other communities that have welcomed these types of cultivation facilities into their communities have seen no increase in crime, and they've seen nothing but positive benefits from these facilities operating within their towns. And you can reach out to members of law enforcement from across the state, and they'll back up with what I'm saying right now, is we have had absolutely zero criminal incidents at any state-licensed cultivation facility in the state. The facility that we're going to be talking about, the second one at issue, just for instance, I mean, they're looking at 30 full-time employees at an average salary of $40,000, which I think is a fairly substantial employer for a town like Chino Valley. And just so you guys know, and the architect touched on this very briefly, is that Chino Valley is particularly well positioned to conduct this type of business. It's a blessing of the climate. Is that it's very similar to other areas in the country where this particular crop grows very well. And there's only a couple of pockets in Arizona that shares that type of characteristic. And this will not be the last facility that wants to locate in Chino Valley because of these factors. And from my perspective, I'm a policy person, I'm a business person. And from my perspective, probably the best opportunity that a town like this is going to see in the next decade to be able to make a substantial improvement to the quality of life and the services, the quality of life of the citizens here and the services that this town can provide could come from an industry like this. We are the fastest growing industry in the country. We are one of the fastest growing industries in the world. And this community here has an opportunity to be on the leading edge of benefiting in a very direct way from legitimate business people that are putting legitimate investment into legitimate businesses. And frankly, helping a lot of very sick people
Let's
live a higher
keep it
quality
to
of life.
3 minutes, if you would.
Oh, was that 3 minutes? I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. You know, you tell I'm a talker. So I just wanted to, I just want to tell you really quick about why I think that these facilities are so critical and really what the benefit is particularly to the town.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Can you give me a quick answer on how many facilities are allowed in this area? You said there's going to be more coming, so I was just curious how many are allowed.
It's a question of local zoning. So when we wrote the law, we kept that relatively open. The maximum number of facilities is, and this is another change too, like a state like Colorado, you can have multiple cultivation facilities per dispensary license. In Arizona, there's only one cultivation facility per dispensary license. Currently, right now, there are 84 active dispensaries, so there's a statewide maximum of 84 cultivation facilities. But as far as how a town like Chino Valley would like to handle it, it would be a local zoning issue.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Sherry Romley. I live at 828 Talia Place in Chino Valley. I got up in front of the council and spoke about this when the variances was only 200 feet and requested that they increase it to 500 because I'm really concerned about putting it close to residences, putting it close to where children go to school, putting it close to churches. And so it's very important to me that we keep the variances. This gentleman just spoke about all the wonderful things that Chino Valley is going to get. We get nothing except for jobs. They get, you know, the people that have jobs, but we don't get any improvements. I hear no one offering Chino Valley improvements to the streets, improvement. They don't pay any of those taxes. There's no, property tax out here. So I'm very concerned about that because nobody seems to say, hey, the only thing that we can do is say, keep it as far away from our children, keep it as far away from our residents as we can. And I'm just very concerned because there are a lot of people wanting to locate here. And as far as the security that they're providing, it's not very much. When you look at what they're going to be growing, it's not very much. I understand the benefits to the people who are sick. I understand that. But there's got to be a way that we do this and we keep it. We have 800 acres of land in Chino Valley that this town owns that could be put in all these way out away from everybody if we chose to do that. But I hope that you do keep the 500, the variances at 500, because I just think it's crazy for us to change it. And I really do believe that the town needs to start looking at what we do with these companies coming to town to provide things for our schools. I know that nobody has done that. I know there's not a requirement. I called the Department of Health. They aren't doing anything to regulate any of the growers here. They only regulate the individuals who grow, but not the businesses who grow here. So it's very important for us in the town to finally look at this because, as he said, we are looking at putting many, many companies here, and we will get no benefit. We'll just get more people and nothing to increase, because they used to have impact fees. We don't get impact fees anymore, so there's nothing. So I do hope that you look at this very hard, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Iris Lacey, and I live at 3315 West Brenda Trail. I am curious, he's talking about all these wonderful jobs. Do those jobs require that the people who take them live in Chino Valley? Because if they don't, I don't see what benefit it is to Chino Valley. Just a question.
Would anyone else have comment? Yes.
Hi, my name is Martin Holguin, and I live directly behind the second proposal, and I've just recently learned about it.
This one, this piece of land, or the next
The
one?
second proposal.
Well, you should probably talk about it when we
Well,
do
can
that.
I just make a general comment?
Sure.
Okay. I guess I'm from old school, and I really don't think it's a good idea to have a pot farm down from a high school. Call me crazy, but I mean, I just think that's just not a very good role model for the kids, thinking, hey, there's a pot farm right down the street, must be okay to do. Just a thought.
Thank you.
This gentleman spoke about legal, no increase in crime statistics and everything. I have information on that these folks did. May I speak on that issue about no crime increase?
Okay, yeah, if you'd go up to...
Briodes called sheriffs in Denver, Mendocino County, California, and another county up in California.
I think the gentleman was referring to crimes as far as breaking into the facilities.
Well, okay.
Which is a different subject than whether marijuana is...
That would be criminal trespassing.
Yes.
In this Denver County, it increased 117% in 1 year after they were put in. Maybe another one here that might. Weapons law violations went up 40%.
Well,
You're
like
talking
I
about
said,
a-
I think we're talking about a different thing there.
I was
You
just
know.
addressing the no crime increase. I didn't think that was accurate.
Yeah.
For both properties.
Well, this is a zoning situation.
Yeah, I saw that letter, and I didn't think that those statistics really had a whole lot of value on what we're discussing.
Yeah, this is a different topic. Okay, well, I would, I did gather that from the wishes of the city council that, you know, there's the technicalities of the law and there's the spirit of the law. And it would seem that that most of the people around here don't want to see this be the pot capital of the state, which was one of the reasons for the large setbacks. And however, I see some merit to this case because these folks bought this piece of property before the regulations went through, although their permitting wasn't. It's legal to go either way, but just looking at this piece of parcel, it's got houses all around it. It's only about 5 properties from the high school. And just as a citizen here in Chino, that has weight in my mind somehow. Should we go ahead and vote on this, or? Yes, okay. So we're going to, does any other board member have any input on this? Would you like to say anything?
Well, I'm a little confused. He's saying if we stay with the 500-foot number, that he would not be able to do this project. Is that
That's
what
correct.
I understand? But he also said that he bought this property with the intent of doing this.
Yeah, a couple of months before the thing went
Right.
through.
Correct. The request of, Mr. Moen's request is for a variance from 500 feet to 100 feet. So it would be 100 feet separation between the property line and the structure.
Is that going to, that difference, is that really going to make any difference one way or another? If the structure is allowed to be done? I don't know, 400 feet's going to make a difference if it's a bad area, it's a bad area. If it's 300 feet difference.
I think the spirit of the legislation was to put these type of operations out in the back areas of Chino and not in the middle of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I have a real concern being so close to the high school and being so close to downtown Chino, that, yeah, I'm a little concerned about that as well.
so, yes.
Ruth, the original greenhouse was 200 feet? For greenhouses, it's 200.
Oh, are you talking about the ordinance?
For regular greenhouse was 200 feet,
50.
50 feet.
The original ordinance that came out of P&Z recommended 200 feet, and town council increased that separation to 500. But the original ordinance, the original greenhouse ordinance was 50 feet.
So I think we'll go ahead and ask for the votes. Why don't we start with you, Mark? Okay, I entertain a motion to vote on this request. Second?
Second?
Second, all right. So, what? All right. Okay, so the motion is a request for relief from the setback requirements in Chapter 4.31 of the medical marijuana dispensaries, off-site cultivation sites and infusion facilities setbacks, and this is for relief from the 500-foot separation requirement to 100 feet to accommodate a medical marijuana cultivation facility. Should we say all in favor, or?
Somebody has to make the motion.
All right, so I make a motion.
Mark, Gary, or
All right.
Beverly can say, so moved.
All right, say so moved.
Okay, well,
I don't know. I'm not a Robert's Rules guy really, but.
That's all right, you're doing fine.
well, so we're in a voting mode.
We're in a voting
Okay.
mode here.
I vote to leave the ordinance at 500 feet.
Okay.
So if that's a yay or a nay, I guess it would.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right. And how about you? How do you feel about it?
Now I guess we're voting because we have the motion and now we're seconding it.
Yes.
And it's been seconded and now we vote.
We're going to do a roll call?
Okay.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
going to roll call vote it.
Beverly
Are we-
Duffy?
First of all, is the motion is to retain the 500-foot setback?
Yes.
For this parcel? I vote no.
Gary Warren?
I vote yes to retain the 500 feet.
Jeff Brown?
I vote yes to retain the 500 feet.
And Mark
Usage.
Usage. Sorry.
I vote yes to retain the 500 feet.
Lillian Morales is not here to vote on that.
So the motion, yes, the motion carries. All right, we have another agenda item It's VAR 14-002. Expert Consulting, Arvin Salom. The location of this property is 1821 East Perkinsville Road. And the summary is, it's a request for relief from setback requirements of Chapter 4.31, medical marijuana dispensaries, off-site cultivation sites, and infusion facilities. From the 500 feet separation requirement to 20 feet to accommodate a medical marijuana and cultivation facility on their property located at 1821 East Perkinsville Road. The situation.
Oh, that's me.
Do you want to read that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Board of Adjustment members. Applicant's Expert Consulting acquired the subject property in May of 2013 for the intent of operating a medical marijuana cultivation facility. Again, with the previous project, there were no specific regulations for medical marijuana at that time. The Chino Valley Town Council held a work-study session on October 2nd, 2014 to discuss additional regulations for medical marijuana dispensaries, cultivation sites, and infusion facilities as standalone and combined uses, among other subjects. After considerable discussion, Council recommended that staff draft an ordinance further regulating the manner and placement of medical marijuana uses. On or about April 11th, 2013, Arvin Saloom submitted a request for a technical review meeting for the purpose of a pre-application review of site plans and requirements prior to submittal of a formal permit application. That meeting was held on April 24th of 2013, and a summary letter was mailed to Mr. Saloom on April 29th, 2013, containing comments that would need to be addressed prior to submittal of a building and engineering plans. A draft ordinance was then provided to Town Council in advance of the November 12, 2013 meeting, a regular meeting for discussion. During that meeting, Council and staff reviewed the draft ordinances, made some changes, and referred the matter to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing. That public hearing was held on November 19, 2013, after proper notice as required by Arizona Revised Statute Section 9, Chapter 462.4. After considerable, .04, after considerable discussion by members, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to forward the proposal to the Town Council with a recommendation for approval. That ordinance was heard by the Town Council during the regular December 2014 meeting. After taking comment from the public and considerable discussion by the council members, the council voted unanimously to approve the ordinance with one amendment, which increased the separation between cultivation facilities and in AR zoning districts from 200 feet to 500 feet. In early 2014, Planner Mayday met with Perry Stone, agent for Expert Consulting, to discuss requirements for submittal of a building permit application. At that time, Agent Stone was advised that the Town Council had adopted additional regulations governing the manner and placement of medical marijuana-related uses, and the previous site plan would not meet the newly adopted standards. The applicant then had the option of revising the site plan to meet the new standards or requesting a variance. On or about June 8, 2014, Agent Stone submitted an application on behalf of Expert Consulting requesting relief from the 500-foot separation. This parcel lies on the south side of East Perkinsville Road, and contains 15.53 acres, more or less. The current zoning is AR5, agricultural residential 5-acre minimum, and the land use designation is medium density residential 2 acres or less. The subject parcel is located approximately 3/4 of a mile east of the intersection of North Road 1 East and East Perkinsville Road. At its widest point, the parcel is 684 feet wide, rendering it unbuildable for the owner's intended purpose under the current regulations governing the manner and placement of medical marijuana cultivation facilities. A small portion of the northeast corner of the parcel, hang on, let me change this here, lies in the floodplain, but does not significantly impact the development in terms of area use and usable site. The site is challenged by its topography. The highest point in the southwest corner of the subject parcel is 4,600 feet, which slopes downward to 4,580 feet in elevation over a distance of 1,000 feet. This site is located approximately, I already said that, East Perkinsville Road serves as an arterial for the east side of Chino Valley, carrying both residents of the area as well as commercial, industrial, and recreational uses to Old Home Manor, the livestock auction, and 2 gravel mining operations. Again, as we previously discussed, the doctrine of vested rights protects property owners and developers from changes in zoning regulations when they have received a valid building permit or have been issued a written statement of approval from the jurisdiction and made substantial expenditures as a result of issuance of the permit prior to the changes made in regulations of the zoning ordinance. That has not been the case here. There have been applications for technical review of site plans prior to an application, but no actual application has been submitted at the time that we took the application for the variance. While the subject parcel is challenged by its topography and its shape, those factors do not render it unusable for any other purpose. The parcel may have been wide enough to accommodate this use at one point. However, upon the adoption of Ordinance 13-779 by the Town Council in December of 2013, the increased setbacks rendered the parcel unusable for the intended purpose of cultivation of medical marijuana, but not for other greenhouse uses or commercial production in a greenhouse setting. The applicant is still entitled to use the property for greenhouse cultivation, but for anything but medical marijuana. And the value of the property has not been diminished by excluding the cultivation of one product when numerous other plants can still be grown, again, on a commercial basis. In addition, the applicant can still use the property for all 9 permitted uses enumerated in the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 3.6, Agricultural and Residential 5-acre minimum, and the 14 conditional uses similarly set forth in Section 3.6.3, Conditional Uses. Staff finds that the applicant has not met the special circumstances threshold as required by law, as the strict application of the zoning has not deprived the owner of privileges enjoyed by other property owners similarly situated in the same zoning classification or district. The applicant's desire to grow medical marijuana, which in turn necessitates the variance request for relief from the separation requirements of the UDO, again constitutes a self-imposed harm. In application for the variance, expert consulting states that due to the size of the property and with the new ordinance in place, the property is not usable without a variance. The applicant's inability to use the property for medical marijuana cultivation that requires a separation from the residential uses that this parcel of land cannot accommodate is the self-imposed harm. Again, the applicant could have formally submitted a site plan for review and approval prior to the change in the ordinance, which would have vested his rights to the previous separation requirements. Secondly, there are numerous permitted uses, again, to which the owner is entitled. Insistence on this specific use imposes the harm, not the condition of the subject property. Therefore, staff finds that the owner of the subject property has in fact imposed the harm upon himself that has caused the need for the variance, rather than a condition of the land. In addition, any variance granted in this case would constitute a grant of special privileges not available to other properties in a similar zoning districts. Again, we've had many people approach the town about building in the AR5 zoning classification, but have been denied because they too cannot meet the setbacks and the standards set forth for this district. Therefore, granting this variance would constitute a special privilege not extended to other property owners of the AR5 district that cannot meet the requirements of the UDO. The staff offers the following facts in support of this conclusion. Number one, the applicant does not have vested rights to the previous 50-foot setbacks. Number two, the applicant has not demonstrated that the property is unusable due to its size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings. In fact, there still remain a number of uses suitable for this property, including commercial scale cultivation. Because the property owner wants one singular use that requires additional separation from the adjacent residential properties, the need for the variance is imposed by the owner rather again than by the condition of the land, and therefore constitutes a self-imposed harm. And finally, issuance of the variance from separation requires would constitute a grant of special privileges as other applicants similarly situated in the same zoning district have been denied as they cannot meet the same standard from which the applicant is requesting relief. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Would you put the previous, the one before that, where it's showing an aerial view of the, yes.
This one, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the subject, this is the boundary of their
Yeah.
property.
I just wanted to see if the houses around it.
Sure. The applicant is here, and I do believe they're prepared to make a presentation as well.
Okay.
One thing,
Yeah, sure.
what is, I guess that's east of that property? Is that all just vacant parcel?
This here,
Yeah, the big one to the right?
yes. I do believe that's just grazing land right now.
Yeah.
It's mostly wash. Anything else? Not until after they present.
We're gonna
Open
give-
it to public comment. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Great, thank
So,
you.
If we have anybody from Expert Consulting would like to talk. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Bill O'Leary. I'm the attorney for Arvin Salom, the owner. And his Representative Perry Stone will make the presentation about the project and you know, the impact. And what I wanted to address is just introduce the project to you, that you'll see that they really have thought this out and planned, and are trying to work and made adjustments already to the plan, trying to address some of the concerns that were brought up at the neighborhood meeting. And a couple of the points I think that differentiates this situation from the prior matter was the location that was a concern, you know, from the board here. This, you know, is certainly at a more of an outer line area that we were talking about, and you'll see the open space that surrounds it. And so I think that concern of, you know, being right in the center of town and right in the high school, you know, is different here. And Mr. Salom, too, bought this property before the ordinance was changed. And he did go to the technical review and was specifically told, don't worry, there won't be any changes to the ordinance. He asked about it. It was a direct question and a direct answer. And so he didn't go forward, you know, not knowing, because he wasn't informed that, hey, there might be a concern. And so it wasn't just one of these situations that he drug his feet and you know, he did get caught. It wasn't a self-imposed harm that was addressed by staff.
He was not aware that the city council was reviewing the situation?
He was told, he asked directly and was told directly, don't worry about it, that's not going to happen.
Well, who told him that?
Dan Hugh, I believe the name was. Hune.
Okay.
Hugh Dan was his name.
And so you weren't aware at all that the city council was taking up this ordinance, and it was in the papers, you know.
Right, and it was obviously, you know, after the technical review meeting that he had, and had already then invested the money into the property. And they, in fact, although it's not the building permit wasn't issued to build the greenhouses, they did, you know, move forward on, you know, clearing the property of an old rundown structure that was on. And so we're making strides and investing money into this project. And I think that the concerns that come up, you know, that you brought up with the initial project, Mr. Stone's going to address, and I think you'll see that there are serious, you know, concerns that they're addressing about security, and they'll describe that to you. The facility itself will be well screened with vegetation, And I think it is something that you'll understand is a benefit. And I think not raising the same concerns that you all addressed and brought forth. So I'll let Mr. Stone make his presentation, on behalf of Mr. Salom. And he's here also, in the back if he has questions. And his representatives, are here, to address all the rest of the concerns. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Good evening. My name's Perry Stone. Does everybody have one of these on the board?
Yes.
Oh, this is kind of how I'm going to run the meeting because I'm too old to remember it all. And I think I can also address some concerns that you had a little earlier that might help.
If you could keep it to around 3 minutes, that would be
I'm going to
wonderful.
try, but I'd also like the ability to rebut any questions that are asked. Will that be possible, please?
Yes.
In a short form? Okay, so the purpose here obviously is to gain the variance. And our objective here is to build a nursery located at 1821 Perkinsville Road and to run a cultivation facility that will exceed the Arizona standards. I'm sure you're already aware of all the illnesses and all the other things that come along with this and the reason for being here. Chino Valley is, as everybody stated, a mecca in an area for growing that is very desirable. And that's why we chose this specific location. When we were here at the neighborhood meeting last week, there was concerns raised. One was security. And yes, we will have somebody living on the facility. It will be guarded 24 hours a day by surveillance cameras and by people. We're not relying on the local law enforcement except to come help us, but not to patrol it. It's not their job. Talking about nobody's offered to bring in funds or anything to help the city. That's something that we learned at the neighborhood meeting, that people said, well, we're making all the concessions and you're getting your dream. Well, we've gone, one of the things that we've looked at and that we talked to these people about was that besides the jobs that it will create, and in answer to one of the questions, if there's local qualified people that can be earned $40,000, $50,000, $35,000 a year doing this labor work, then they're more than welcome. And those applications will be accepted first. Because it doesn't make sense for somebody to drive 50 miles to come to work when you've got people 8 miles away. So we're looking to be local that way. We also, with the help of Andrew, came up with an idea of, I don't know that it can be a tax. That's something that will probably take time, that we would want to help legislate. But we need to give back to this city because none of the facilities here, their sales are not local. Their sales are in dispensaries that are in different CHAWs or different areas of the state, just like ours. We believe that some form of funds per pound of processed medicine we're going to donate that to the city. Our pick is libraries and schools, drug rehabilitation, drug programs. And so that's our way of giving back to the city, along with getting Andrew involved in trying to bring legislation into so that this town can make an ordinance that allows for some type of a tax. So we're offering that up front without any legislation. We want to be able to give back to the town. We have only our integrity to go on. We've talked to our direct neighbors, which are located right in this area right here. There's 3 homes. The young lady that owns this home right here, sitting in the back, was concerned about her view and being fenced in by a bunch of buildings. Well, we've changed our layout, and we've compacted that to be back into this area only, so that... Huh?
You need to speak into the microphone. I cannot hear you, dear.
I apologize.
Thank you.
I've got an issue going on here. Okay, so we've tried to, in this area right here, if you look at the area where we've talked about the heights of our buildings, we've shortened the heights of our buildings. Oh, a mouse. Okay, I can do that. Thanks. We've shortened the heights of our metal buildings so as not to obstruct their view and the views that come out to the east-west side of the property. We've condensed the area that we're going to build in, that you can see, that doesn't go anywhere. Let me see, I got this mouse going on. There we go. That doesn't pass right here. So we had concerns from some neighbors that lived in this area down here. We're not going to build down there anymore. We've just compacted everything. We're using Lion Engineering, a local company that's going to take care of the floodplain issues and the runoff issues. We're also chartered to make a garden in the back of vegetables and stuff that can be sold or donated to the local needy or to any outdoor markets, and donate that funds as well. We don't have any other thing to offer the city because of the tax situation, unless we can get that incorporated, and again, we'll help. You know, it's hard to fight against all the people that say we don't want it in our neighborhood, but we agree with what you're doing. And no matter what neighborhood we're going to go to, we're going to hear the same thing. So our attitude about that is make it as friendly as we can to our neighbors, keep it clean, have it run correctly, and keep it nice. Just like any other business would run.
Yeah, I have a question. What is the purpose? Why do you have to have the 20-foot?
Okay, here's what happens. That takes us back to the original tech review that happened on April of 2013. And in the original tech review, first I've got the letter that we received after that. Nothing in here told us that we had to, or no one at the meeting told us that we had to file this site plan. We thought that that site plan that we brought in was it. We didn't know, okay? When I came, and then over the year, or 9.5 months of planning and interviewing people, doctor from UCLA, people from the agricultural college here in Tucson, to work with us and put all of that together, and the infrastructure of getting the plans drawn up and all of that. I walked into the office and I was still unaware of needing a variance. I didn't even know about a conditional use permit or the setback issue. So as I started to get into this project, I learned about the setback issue. And I was told at that point, did you know about the new ordinances of December 2013? I said no, because I didn't. Okay, and that may be ignorance is no excuse. But at that point, we started to address it, not being at the year period. And in that meeting, we tape recorded that meeting, and we had minutes, it all typed up for us. And in that, Mr. Saloom asked the board that down the road, after we build a bunch of greenhouses or after we get partially into this project, is anything going to change? Are we going to have any surprises? And the gentleman says, we are not going to take bites out of the apple. We are not going to come down the road halfway through your project and say, oh, by the way, we need you to do this. There's another comment that says that before you go on to your third concern, your concern is that the town dreams up another requirement on you. And they told us no worries. So we weren't aware of the fact that we had to do that. When
you had the first technical review, did they give you, or Mr. Salom, did they give either of you a packet telling you what you would have to do to develop that property where it would require a building permit?
Of course they did. And now let me preface that with, I didn't get into this project until March of 2014. Okay, so I'm kind of new at that point. But when I met with Ruth and we talked about the changes that happened in December 2013, she referred to an area that talked about setbacks. And when we were talking about it, her first thought, and the way I perceived it, when she drew lines through the area that said that this is for dispensaries only, because it says dispensaries, then it talks about cultivation sites. So with that conversation that I had with her, which was prior to the second tech review, I didn't understand. My understanding was we didn't have to worry about that. So the original plans had a 20-foot setback. on them. And that was approved by the review board in 2013. So in my mind, that's what we're trying to get back to, is the original agreement, or however it's stated, that the 20-foot was setback was enough. And when I went in for the first meetings, I was never told that that 20-foot setback was wrong until the conversation I had with Ruth. So, but with that, I look at it as no harm, no foul. We're here tonight. We've spent the time because we've been told when we went back and forth with that, we were told, go get the variance, go get the CUP, and do your project. So that's how we feel about it. No harm, no foul. We would like a variance for this to do the things that we want and work with the city in any way we can to prove ourselves as stand-up people and running a real correct business.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry
Appreciate
for the over the
presentation.
3-minute deal. Please.
So you could approach the dais there and. Okay, you can give us your name and.
Can she have more than 3 minutes?
It might take more than.
Well, no,
talk
I
really
think,
fast.
yeah, just talk fast.
My name is Barbara Casterman. I live at 1405 Salida del Sol, Chino Valley. And my property, I hope this lady can hear me. Where's the mouse?
And so that's the little strip
Well,
of
'cause I
properties
can't
right next
see
to it
very
here.
well.
It's right, so you can look right there.
Well, I still
Property's
can't
right here.
see.
Okay,
This one?
Okay.
Her property's
Wait,
down at the back.
Harry, let me talk. This is my property right here, so it corners in here. This is my next door neighbor, da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, on your plans, you're saying that you've redone it, so nothing's going to go beyond, say, right about here, correct? Is that correct, Perry?
Just a second here, and I will let you know that.
You just said it in your thing.
I believe it's right about here.
Okay, but what's the page that shows future plans supposed to mean?
That is the whole future plans. That would be our furthest build right here. The phase 1 and 2 would not come past right here.
so it would all be in that northern little strip there?
Go back to the,
How do we go back and forth?
no, she knows, we need to go back to the flat maps.
Show me once and I'll see.
No,
That one?
nope, that one.
That one works.
Everybody likes
Okay,
it.
phase 1 would come to right about here.
And phase two?
Phase 2 comes to right about, well, phase 2 and 1 are right about here. Phase 3, 4, and 5 come down to here, and that could be a year before we build.
So let me ask you a question again then. What do you propose to do with this?
Nothing. Vegetable gardens for donations to the city.
Okay.
To the homeless.
Okay. All right. So there's a couple of things I have to ask Perry. Is number one, he called me last Tuesday and informed me that they already had a guy lined up to be like a caretaker, and they're going to pay him $80,000 a year. And a couple with children that are going to be there, living there.
I didn't say a couple of
You,
children.
yes, you
They don't
most
have
certainly did. I did not make that up. I do not make things up. By the way, I'm a credit manager for an industrial supplier. I'm well-educated, and I've been doing it for 28 years, and I do not lie. Okay? For the record. I understand you're going to put the plants up, you're going to do all the growth. Well, that takes time. That takes years for trees to grow, for shrubbery to grow. The properties, I will speak on behalf of the Broidies, who are not here. They own the 2 frontal properties. They have tenants that live there. They are very concerned about this because of the 20-foot variance. I feel that very strongly a 20-foot variance is not nearly enough. By the way, there are couples with families that live along this road. You have Bright Star over here. You've got Chino Meadows over here. You've got people surrounding this. This looks like it's a lone parcel, and it's
Let
not.
me ask you a question. What is to the east of that? Is there anything between there and those gravel pits?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, you've got Haystack. Those gravel pits are 3-4 miles away.
Okay,
The gravel pit's 2 miles away,
okay.
and a lot of it is Perkins Ranch.
Yeah.
But Billy Wells owns where the wash is, and then Cindy Ducote and Tom Perkins own just right about where the white starts on there.
Okay.
There's also homes up in here.
That's where I live, right there.
Where my arrow is? Okay. Yeah, so, and there's, the women that live in these buildings here, or these houses here, I'm sorry. After we had the first meeting, and I've got to put this out, just as a resident, and theoretically, I'm hoping everybody would think like maybe I do. I went home after the last meeting, I go to my back porch, which is right here, and I look out, it's dark, I hear coyotes, I got my jackrabbits, my roadrunners, and it's dark, and it's quiet. And that's what we like. We like the peacefulness. I can leave my windows open. I don't have to worry about literally anything. And the bottom line is, I understand there's been talk, and this is a little off kilter here, that Chino wants to develop out by Old Home Manor, the industrial park. That would be a great place for it. Move it way out there. That's wonderful. And one other thing I would ask is, I'll bet I could go door to door with all the neighbors in my vicinity, and we could come up with the money to pay these people for what they paid for these 15-plus acres.
All right, thank you very much.
$100,000. I have a lot more questions, but that's okay.
Well,
Thank you
we get the spirit
Do you
of it
get
and appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ron Romley. I live in Chino Valley, 828 Talia Place. I wanted to talk at the first one, but this is basically the same thing back for both properties. I was the vice mayor when the medical marijuana bill was passed. And first off, I want to apologize to Andrew because he admitted that he brought it here from California. I want to apologize for all the names I've called this gentleman, you know, over the years. But what I really wanted to emphasize is the fact that this marijuana, medical marijuana, and the rules have gone over probably 3 or 4 different councils. When we first got it, the state didn't have a clue as to what they were doing. Every 2 weeks we would have a report, and the state had changed their mind. We're still not there yet. But I can assure you there's been hours and hours of debate between all the various councils as to what we should do for setbacks. The 500 feet that is the current one, I don't think is too short. This town is 60+ square miles. And to put these marijuana growing facilities inside populated areas, I think is not the right thing to do. We have probably out of the 60+ square miles this town is, we're only physically on about 10%. So there's a lot of area out there that can be looked at and purchased. And marijuana, I'm not going to argue the point because the voters voted it in. It's going to come. But we need to be very steadfast with regards to whatever the current regulations are. Because if you give it to one guy, to where in this case it's only 20 feet, if you give it to these people, you're setting a precedent for the next one that comes in. And you've got to be thinking about what's going to happen down the road. And if we hold steadfast and say this is what the current rule is, I think it should be even further out, but we're not there yet. But whatever it is what we should stand by, because they don't know what is going to come. And I think Andrew made a comment. You don't mind me calling you by your first name? I'm fine with that. Okay. Made a comment that we are a specialized location. I'm all for turning the sun off for a while, but that's not going to happen. But the whole point of it is there are going to be more in here. And we've got to get our council, we've got to get a lot of other people together to really set up something that we think. We really don't get any money off of this. Giving it to the schools doesn't help the town. Totally separate issue. But the whole point of it is that a lot of money is made. I read an article in the paper the other day about how much money is made per ounce. And the thing of it is that we need to stand fast with what we've got. And I go with the recommendation of Ruth Mayday and sticking with the the 500 feet.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stone.
If I may, I agree with him in some points, actually, for real. But one of the reasons that we're here is because we did start a year and a half ago, okay? And that's, I can see where his point, what's coming down the road, and if 15 people show up and want to do the same thing, they weren't here a year and a half ago, spending their time and money and their sweat equity to figure out how to be here and pick a spot and go through the technical review and be told, like, this plan will fly. And that's where we get back to, is that we want to get this variance, and if the variance is only for the use of what we're asking for, we're not going to come back and ask for more. That's not our MO. But the fact that we were here a year and a half ago and started should have something to say for what we've done, just as Bill made a point on.
I have a question for you. Now, if you get a 20-foot variance on this thing, seems to me you could come back there and build 5 times as much stuff in your vegetable garden area. I know you say you won't, but I mean, if
we're fine
with the 20-foot variance.
Okay, well, we're fine with, I'll be back to you. This area right here is all we want the variance for, because our plan is what we say it is. It's not going to change. So if our variance was based on our drawings, which is what we're looking for, and that there will be no more growth on that property that falls in this suit, but allows us to have gardens or whatever we want to do for the neighbors or for the people, we're fine with that. So you can put a door on that, because we're not looking to grow bigger or make it something that it isn't being face value right now.
Okay. Let's, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My name's Mike O'Brien. I live at 1410 Freedom Court. This piece of property right there. If you give them a 20-foot variance at the one end of the property, what's to keep them from selling the property to somebody else, even if they have verbally said they're not going to do it, and somebody else comes in and they've already got a variance on the piece of property?
Well, no, it wouldn't be given that way.
Right on. We don't want it that way.
Yes, but, if they want to sell the bottom part, it could, they still have to obey the zoning of Chino Valley. So if they wanted to put houses in there or whatever, it's not your property. You have to, it might be nice to look over that valley, but it's, people have a right to buy property.
I'm sorry. In regards to what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not disputing the fact that they should be able to do whatever's legal on their property, but if you grant a variance of 20 feet, won't that surround the entire property?
Well,
I
personally feel like, after listening to Mr. Stone, that we would make it conditional that they couldn't have a 20-foot variance on the lower parcel.
That's what I was going to say. When we were in the technical review meeting, it was brought to our attention that we could ask for variances for certain things or for the whole thing.
Right.
And at this point, we did, on their recommendation, come in and ask for a variance for the whole property, but we're willing to back off to be a variance just for what it is we've submitted here today.
Yeah, at this point.
No, forever. That's how we would like the ordinance.
So the ordinance could be written that it couldn't be done. Is that what I understand?
Yes, and it would need legal review and stuff. We wouldn't be able to do it tonight, I don't think.
No, and I don't know necessarily that a variance transfers with the sale of a property either. If the new owner...
I would imagine that if it's legal for this man, it would be legal for the next owner.
Well, the new owner would have to submit new site plans for their space, and that, being a new owner, they would have to abide by the rules and regulations of the town. at the time of their new purchase.
You know, the town council has spent numerous hours discussing and investigating this whole situation. And they came up with this 500-foot variance for a reason. And I think that, you know, other property owners should not be penalized and not be able to do their projects because of this ordinance. And so the variance, I think, should apply to everyone. And it should, I think that it's 500 feet in the size of Chino Valley is not a large amount of land. So.
Agreed.
Yes.
Can you pull up the satellite view, please? Or aerial, however you want to put it.
Yeah, it just.
Delete.
Oh, that one, thank you.
There you go.
My name is Rodney Ryder. I live at 1980 East Perkinsville Road, which is right there. As a property owner, if I want to build a horse barn, aren't I bound by current zoning and codes on my setback?
Yep.
But catty corner over here, we're not going to worry about it. I'm a former Marine Corps Staff Sergeant. I'm a Gulf War combat veteran, and I moved out to Chino Valley to get away from the craziness, and now you're bringing it right to my doorstep. My wife and I...
I'm not bringing it to your door.
It's not in your front yard. Is it? You guys are making all the money on this, and we're the ones having to pay for it. And you're talking about security. What kind of security? Armed security? What is their qualifications? As a former Marine Corps barracks guard, I think I'm qualified to speak on that subject.
And what do you want for an answer, that they're all going to be qualified security guards? Yes, the answer is yes. And the person that's going to be living there is qualified and has all the permits and all the certificates that are needed.
By whose standards?
By the state. And they happen to be ex-military Navy SEAL, by the way.
I really doubt Navy SEALs be guarding a marijuana plant. There was a Marine that died guarding a poppy field in Afghanistan, and that still makes my blood boil. I really 100% doubt you have Navy SEALs having anything to do with your company.
I think you'd be surprised.
I think you'd be very surprised, sir. But either way, our
Let
security...
him finish, guys, let him finish. Go ahead.
I walk my dog down that road. I don't want to see a pot farm 20 feet off the main road. There are a lot of children that ride their bicycles. The lady over there, I see her walking her dog, and I asked her if she saw that. I just found out about it today. Took time off from work to come here to express my concern. And we moved to Chino to be in a nice rural, in my mind, it's like we step back in time 20, 30 years. I don't want to go 50 years into the future.
Thank you very much.
In regards to his comment about walking the dog, if he walks a little further up the block, there's 35 greenhouses. I mean, we're not changing anything, where there's no impact on the property or in the neighborhood that's different than what our surrounding neighbors have, like the Flora Company and so on, that are simple businesses, just like ours. There's, you know, everybody calls it a pot farm. It's not a pot farm. It's a facility for growing medicinal marijuana. It's run just like any wonderful business is run. It's run correctly. It's not a bunch of people walking around in shorts and T-shirts. There are people there doing their jobs. These are people that are certified horticulturists, that are doctors, that have doctorates, that are, you know, simple gardeners, simple janitors. There's the gamut of employment and a gamut of type of people. And the area there, we want them to have the same nice benefits as everybody else in town. I'm going to be living up here. I like it up here, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want to ruin
If you were going to be growing roses, would you still be asking for this variance?
We wouldn't have to, but that's the difference. And again, at the time of the first technical review, we didn't even know about this. Everybody says, move them over here, move them over there. If we would have had information on this, maybe we wouldn't have bought the property.
When was your first technical review?
April 2013. And when we left that review, as I read some of the comments, they told us like...
No, the comments aren't relevant. I mean...
Okay.
And you didn't follow that the council had changed the zoning to the 500-foot?
I did not know it until I met Ruth in
If this
April.
is your business and you didn't pay attention to find out if the zoning
I came on in
ordinance had
March,
changed.
and within 2 weeks of coming on to this job, I was in the office and I found out about it. And that's why we're here, because they told us this is what we're going to have to go do. So no harm, no foul, we're going to do it.
Okay, let's hear from the rest of the people first here, and then, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, security, safe.
Properness.
Rodney Ryder, 1980 East Perkinsville Road. Okay, for sake of argument, say you do have a bunch of highly trained Navy SEALs providing security. Is that what this community wants? People in full tilt combat mode in our housing areas? I, for one, don't.
I think you're overstating it. It
Mr.
just
Stone,
happens to be.
let's let some people talk here for a while. Let's have this lady here. I'd like...
He's got 3 questions.
Yeah.
And you can't let him get up again and stand there. Because he keeps interfering. 3 questions. My name is Shelley Mihelich. I live at Highlands Ranch. I moved here because of the rural community that it is. I have 3 questions. Number 1, why? Why would the town of Chino Valley want a facility where you need guards and fences and lights and the possibility of criminal activity? Why? Number 2, why did they come with a Washington lobbyist to come here who is very professional in what he has to say to try to talk us into this? Number 3, if the board of the Council for Chino Valley lamented over this, and it took this long for them to come up with a suggestion of a 500-foot variance. A lot of thought had to go into that. Why are we questioning it? Why are we belaboring this? Those are my questions.
Yes. We're going to let this lady...
Dave Lacey, 3315 West Brenda Trail, talking on behalf of my, the Briotes who own property, 2 pieces of property, I believe, right about here. And they've got a written letter they asked me to deliver to you, opposing the variance of the 500-foot setback. It basically say we oppose changing the setback from 500 to 20 feet. Both their properties are rental units. They fear inability to attract tenants with a pot farm literally in their backyard. See, they say we attended a neighborhood meeting. We were told they wanted to create something beautiful. In that case, why are we looking at an eyesore for 15 months? They tore down the existing structures, clear-cut all the trees, and left much debris in a vacant and now barren land. I'd offer a comment. You're going to end up with a town, if you have these farms, with security fences, some of which I heard are opaque, and razor wire. We're going to drive through here because this is a town of prisons. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Myers. I live at 1851 East Perkinsville. I live in that house. That house there. There.
Okay.
And we live there. And I'm a simple person speaking. I feel badly for these gentlemen, but this is my home, and it's our home. And we came here. This is the retirement home. All that things that you do. You grab your money, you stick it together and you put it in a house. I have to work to pay for it. She still has to work to pay for it. And we love the openness, we love the space. I like Chino Valley for that very reason. My concern is the precedence. 20 feet. What is 20 feet? From me to the wall? From me, okay, 20 feet. You start off at 500. How did we get down to 20 feet? My gosh, I could throw a ball that far. And there they'll be. They want to make some concessions. Bravo for them. Bottom line is, these facilities, God bless medical marijuana, we need to figure out a way to build them where they're more suitable. This is residential. Our house, our parties, our families live in that house. And this facility is going to be surrounding it this year, next year, and all of our lives. That's my story.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Marty Holging. I live at 1455 Sleated Hill Soul. That would be this house right here. Now, I understand what the gentleman said, but I would just like to say one thing in my behalf. I'm a Vietnam vet, and I didn't move to Chino Valley to be in a combat zone. I really didn't. I thought this was going to be a nice, quiet, rural setting. I did not expect to live next to a prison. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel. I mean, I feel sorry for these guys. They bought the property, blah, blah, blah. They spoke to blah, blah, blah. Great. But in my view, I didn't come here to live next to a prison. I came here as a retirement home. I like Chino Valley. I like the people. I don't think I like this plan at all. That's just my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you. Would there be any more input? Yes, ma'am.
Iris Lacey, 3315 West Brenda Trail. I think it's unfortunate that this, either this one man or a corporation or whatever he is, that they spent $100,000 on a piece of land. But I know that our neighbor, the Briotes, spent way more than that on each of the 2 rental properties that they have on Salida del Sol. So I don't see why all of these people who invested more than $100,000 in their homes need to be penalized for this one new place that's just coming in, number one. And number two, who told them that they didn't need to do anything, that nothing would be? It doesn't sound like the name that they mentioned was a Chino Valley official. I mean, so somebody told them something wrong. Big deal.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Joy Hollett. I live at 1990 East Perkinsville Road, and it should be, oops, not working. Oh, there it is. Right about there. Off the picture. Anyways, up in that area. One concern I have is that no one else has mentioned, of course I agree with everything they've said, that my property tax, my property value, I fear will go down. I've been told it won't. Last meeting they said no, it'll go up. That's fine. But if no one would come in and buy it, if I was new here and moving into a neighborhood that had a pot farm, I'd look across the other way. I'd go to the west side of 89. And I'm sure other people would feel the same way. So I don't think I'd be able to sell my house if they moved in.
Thank you.
I have a question. Will this project cease to exist if you do not get this variance?
I think so. I mean, we're kind of in a pickle. I mean, that's why we took and downsized it and went to the neighbors and asked what we can do and trying to follow all the rules. And if we would have popped it up a year and a half ago, we would be obviously having this conversation, and everybody, we would have built something that probably a lot of people wouldn't have liked. So it did kind of give us, looking at hindsight, it did give
So-
us an opportunity to fit into the neighborhood. But the thing about the pot farm, obviously, it's a real facility. It's not, you know, what it's being described as, and we're not bringing in a war, and we don't have people with flak jackets walking around. We're quite simple people as well. And this is a family operation, not a big conglomerate of a bunch of money from all over the US or any of that. And so we're asking for the variance of back to where we started. And if
Yeah.
20 feet is off and we need to move something around to make it 50 feet or so, you know, we want the city to work with us, and we want to work with the city.
Yeah, I have no real issue with a medical marijuana farm. My issue is to protect the surrounding neighbors and their rights, and also to give credit to the council for their decision of the 500-foot ordinance. If you would have started this project, could you have done it with the 500-foot variance?
No.
Not
We
at all.
wouldn't have bought the property.
So when you bought the property, you were hoping to get a variance?
No, when we
No,
bought
they
the
bought it
property,
before
our project flew with the town review board, the technical review board. Everything was fine. And at that point, we were just buying the land, or Arvin was just buying the land, and they
So let me
solidified
clarify
him.
this, Mr. Stone. Technically, the city of Chino Valley doesn't actually owe you anything. They haven't really harmed you because you didn't get your building permits in on time. But you feel that you are harmed in a way because you brought the property first and with a certain design for it, and you can't do that now.
Yeah, the property was bought in
please.
conjunction with the technical review, correct?
So, so what I think the situation is do we need to remedy this so that you're not harmed? And we need to balance that out with what the neighbors feel, which is the fact that this is in a residential area. It's not out in the country.
Well,
So those are the two
residential,
things I think we have to weigh when we decide on this. Is that correct?
For sure. I
Okay.
mean, again, if it wasn't AR, residential, agriculturally located, and the technical review didn't go the way that it did, we wouldn't have bought the land, or we would have bought another piece of land or done something, because Chino Valley is our destination. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, which you've been made aware of, just, you know. So we would like a variance to only cover the ground that.
All right, well, I think we got it. So, we've heard quite a bit of testimony here. Is there something else that we knew that nobody's said, that, real quick? All right, go ahead, one more. And then we'll have to wrap this up because it's getting
Again,
late.
as you are well aware, even the state did not have their regulations put together. But my question is, are they going to have glow lights at night for these properties? Because I noticed the other properties are glowing, not because people are smoking in them, but they have lights. And we have dark skies here. You know, we have dark skies and dark skies on purpose. We have the prettiest views. And I would hate to lose it because these people have to continue keeping their lights on all night long.
Well, I'm
And
sure they
then-
could mitigate that.
Positively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to address a couple of the comments that have been made, if it
Yes,
pleases the
ma'am.
board. First of all, when I started this presentation this evening, we discussed the doctrine of vested rights.
Right.
In talking with Mr. Stone and during two technical reviews, both the one in 2014 and the first one in 2013, they were advised that these were technical reviews only, that there were no permits issued as a result of this, that no approvals had been granted. And in fact, were issued a list of changes that needed to be made to those plans that they had submitted for them to qualify and be even able to be submitted for a permit and for formal consideration before they did anything else. So coming out of this meeting, within 10 days, they received a letter outlining every single correction that needed to be made for it to be considered a valid submittal. That did not happen. It didn't happen in 2013. We finally got something now. In terms of the understanding, I don't know how to explain any differently that those technical reviews were reviews only. And it was made clear in both in the letters and in the meetings that those are not a permit or an approval of any description, and that they have to come back with corrections before we can move forward. So it's unfortunate that the applicant didn't understand what was going on, but that's the case, is that we are abundantly clear. It says on the top of the application that this is not a formal application. This is a submittal for review. So there can be no confusion. This is not the technical site plan review. It is only a pre-application review. So the confusion is unfortunate, but that did take place, and they did know, even before this, they did not have a 20-foot setback. The minimum was 50. So we're talking about a couple of different things here. In terms of I had one more note. They referenced a Hugh Dan that told them that it was fine, that we were not going to come up with any further regulations. We don't have anybody by that name on staff, nor was there anybody employed by the town at that time named Hugh Dan. So I don't know who told them this, but this was certainly not a staff member of the town of Chino Valley. And if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Well, generally in a building permit situation, you have very clear outlines of what you must do, and usually you're given packets which you must follow.
Correct.
So that part didn't concern me, but so I think at this time then I'd like to make a motion that we vote on this. In summary, it's a request for relief from the setback requirements of Chapter 4.31 of the Medical Marijuana Dispensaries, Off-Site Cultivation Sites, and Infusion Facilities. And they would like us to change the setbacks from 500 feet separation requirement to 20 feet for their facility and their property located at 1821 East Perkinsville Road. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we vote on giving them this relief, this easement from the code. And
I'll second that.
You'll second that, okay? So we'll go ahead and call the roll. This is to give them the 20-foot setback rather than a 500.
Sorry, I lost the tip. Beverly Duffy.
No.
Gary Warren.
No.
Jeff Brown.
No.
And Mark
Usage.
Usage. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
I
Nay.
practiced for a long time, too.
No.
Motion fails to grant the variance.
All right, so at that, I guess we'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Meeting's adjourned.
I wanted to do that.
We're
Nope.
not done.
For what?
To adjourn.
Oh,
All in favor?
all right, let's have a
Yes.
vote to adjourn.
Yes, I have vote to adjourn.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned.